there are people who the more you do for them, the less they do for themselves. Is that not true?
Yeah.
I mean, you will find little nuggets like that all throughout that.
Welcome to the Recap Book Chat. We are a mother and daughter duo
Conversing about books over a cup of joe.
seeking truth to help us glow.
Ready, set, let's grow.
And welcome to the Recap Book Chat. Thank you so much for stopping by today. We are going to dive into a classic, a true classic by
Jane Austen. Written, 1815. Wow. Isn't that a jaunt back
a
in time?
long time ago. And I missed the name. It's Emma. It is her last published book. So, and you said it was written in
1815.
1815.
Yes. And she only lived to be 41. So
Yeah.
she was born in 1775, which is 1 year off of 1776 for our country. So, I mean, that kind of puts it in the time period when all this was happening. Sometimes it's good to connect with history.
That's a great point. So she was around the time of America being formed.
Yeah.
That's
And
cool.
then I found out that she was one of 8 children, but I never could find out which one. I mean, was she the oldest? Was she the youngest? I mean, I couldn't find that out. And that she only left something in her will to her brother and her sister, Cassandra, her brother Henry, but none of the other ones. So, of course, they could have died or something could have happened to them too. So,
Yeah.
it was
Well,
very sketchy.
and it was also said that she's famously quoted for saying that she was going to create a heroine whom no one but myself will much like when she started Emma. So, and yet a lot of people, I think some people don't like her, but a lot of people do, I would say.
Well, I will say I like Mr. Knightley in my reading journal. It says favorite character. Mine was Mr. Knightley. I loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Knightley.
And you told me about not the most popular Emma movie, but you told me about another one that was like in 1997 with I forgot
Kate Beckinsale.
yeah. And wow, that Mr. Knightley did such a good job. And there's the one I checked out from the library, it was terrible. He just but this guy, bad move, Emma, bad move, bad show. I mean, he was just like telling her when she did something wrong, he called her on it.
Yeah.
And I said, that's a true friend when someone will do that,
Badly done, Emma. Badly
Yeah,
done.
that's what he said. And I was just like, oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
she takes it, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So let's start off with give just a short summary of what the book of Emma's about. If you've never heard of it, just what is it about?
Well, as you contrasted it with Pride and Prejudice and some of our other ones, that Emma is well-to-do, which is different. So she's going down a different avenue, and I don't think in her life she was not well-to-do, because it had said that she had 2 loves in her life, and the first one did not marry her because of that. His name was Tom Lefroy, and he wanted someone with a different status, a better status than Jane had. And then in
So
this
that
book,
makes sense that she kind of writes against that, marrying purely for status, because she was hurt by that.
and she's speaking up and just addressing the elephant in the room, And in this time period, I mean, there is something to be said about going back in time, and you can take away the trappings that we have, the devices that we have, but basically people are still the same. We do, but I think the big word, I heard someone talking and they said people are the same, but what we're dealing with now at our time period is that they haven't had to deal with before is distractions. And I think that's right. I've heard like college professors say they can't get their students to read a book like Pride and Prejudice or, War and Peace, or even smaller ones, because the kids get distracted. And so I think that this one is just like I just recently went and saw my friend Luann, and I said, "Let's be like Emma M. Lyon, and let's have a constitutional." And she does it here in this book as well. They go for their morning walk, they go for their evening walk, and you know what? We just enjoyed that so much, just walking and then talking, and I thought, so that's what Emma's doing.
I feel like it's motivational to do that, to get into nature when you're reading Emma. There's something so about it that's simplistic. You go back to a much slower time. And like you said, the constitutional, taking a walk, something that simple. We don't do that anymore. We don't do that as a society anymore. And stepping back through the pages of Jane Austen, who's just writing about what she knows, this is everyday life for her. It is motivational to do that because I want a piece of that pie, that looks like that's great. And it is. And
Well, now if you're doing a walk like that, you're counting your steps. It's not the same. It's not the same to meander, like you were saying that you and Jonah had been on a walk and he found this critter,
turtle.
and yeah,
Yeah.
tadpoles. He's found all this kind of stuff as you're not counting your steps, but counting maybe memories and making memories and talking and not being so focused on getting my steps in.
Mm.
So, yeah, Luann and I were not counting steps, but we were seeing all these flowers and plants that were on her street, and it was really just a blessed time, which I don't think I would have asked her to do that if I hadn't read Emma. I wouldn't have. I just wouldn't. So that's one way that reading can grow you as a person. I mean, would you step into somebody and you go and say, "Hey, you wanna go on a constitutional?" No, you wouldn't. They'd first of all, they'd be looking at you funny, but Luann, she's like, "Sure, let's go."
Well, she's a kindred spirit.
Yes, she is. She's a reader. She knows it grows you, and so I'm like, "Wow."
Well, I love that. But yeah, that's what I wrote in my notes too. The simple times, motivated to get out and racer, and fully present. Like the
Mm,
characters are fully present with each other, and the way that they don't rush a conversation. The conversations take a while, and I'm looking at our own conversations. We have shortcuts. We have shortened words. We do a
mhm,
lot of things to
mhm.
make things more pithy. And this time it was, let's fully talk about this, whatever issue it is. And they talk and then they listen and then they really pick up on social cues because they're fully present. So it's, I really enjoyed it 100%.
The fact is that in my thing says, "Do you have a favorite character?" And then you have a least favorite character. And she puts people in there on purpose that totally annoy the dickens out of you. Sorry, Charles.
Yeah.
That just there is Mrs. Eldon, and she's just like nonstop. When you say they talk, like her and Mr. Knightley might have a conversation, that's different than someone talking nonstop. And blah, 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 and then all that, and I was just like, "Oh my goodness." And if you listen to the audio, you'll be crying. I mean, you'll be crying. You're like, "Oh my goodness." But
We're
that's why
gonna
I read some, and then I did you know that she didn't ever marry? Yeah. Which do you think that's odd that, you know, she's written these books about romance, her heroines do get married, but she did not.
But they get married for love, and she could have married, but we don't know if that was but she turned him down, probably maybe because not of she wasn't in love, but she did get a one proposal of marriage
Yeah, she
that
was
she
engaged, like, for one night. That reminds me when I was in high school, I went steady with someone. They gave me their class ring and everything for one night too, and then I had to break up. I said, "No, no, I don't wanna do this. It feels heavy. It feels heavy." So, yeah, I understood that totally, just like, "Oh, no.
so
You're
you
not
can
the one."
relate to that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely,
Well,
definitely.
I do think it's hard to refuse someone in the moment because that's so much rejection in the moment. I don't know what is better. Is it better to say yes and then reject them later?
It's true.
I don't know. But anyway, so let's set the summary goes. So we know Emma's the main character. It's Emma Woodhouse. She's this very beautiful, clever, rich woman, and she lives in this fictional village in England.
With a
And
needy father, the most
yes,
needy father. We're coming up in June, so we have Father's Day, and be thinking of your five-star fathers, like Atticus Finch, like the father from Peace Like a River, like the Ordinary Grace dad. Okay, on the other end of the spectrum, I put her dad. Her dad was just the most neediest person, and he got on my nerves. He did.
Well, he's a hypochondriac. But more than that, because he doesn't like change so much that when the governess, who was Mrs. Taylor, ends up getting married and moves down the road from him, not that big of a deal, he is like just so torn up about it. Not that he misses her, it's just that there's been a change in the routine. And he's just like,
And he keeps saying, "Oh, poor," he just felt so sorry for her. And then Mr. Knightley's like, "Why are you feeling sorry for her? She had to care for both of you. Now she just has one. She just has her husband. She's in better shape." I mean, he was like the voice of reason. I was just
I
like,
know.
"Thank you."
And so Mr. Knightley is also a neighbor, and he's a close friend who's been around since Emma was born. Like, he's held her as a baby. He's just a family friend, and he understands her father, and he is very kind with him. Like,
Yes,
he wants him to be comfortable and understands his idiosyncrasies.
idiosyncrasies. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So anyway, after Miss Taylor marries, that's kind of where the book picks up right as she's getting married. And Emma is trying to comfort her father, but at the same time, this is her governess. So she doesn't have a mom. So Miss Taylor's a mother figure. And so I think she's feeling a bit lost too. And so then she's kind of takes up this matchmaking as a hobby, I think, to kind of fill that void. And there's a young lady named Harriet who she's trying to help. So tell us about Harriet. What are your thoughts on her? Who is she? I guess that just leads us into roll call. So
Yes. Well, Harriet, and what did they say? I'm looking in my book because it tells you that I didn't catch it at first, and I don't know if I marked it, but that Harriet, it says a natural birth is what it said, but I didn't know what that meant. But actually, it was like nobody knew who her father was. And
an illegitimate child.
yeah, but it said it in such a nice way that I didn't even
That's what
know.
it was, natural birth. And you're thinking, when I read it, you think, oh, just like that doesn't have the same connotation that it did back then.
And she's in a home for, like girls and stuff, but she wants to be her mentor and mentor her. And Mr. Knightley, man, he tries to put the kibosh on this instamatically and doesn't think it's good because she just oohs and ahs over everything Emma says. Right, Emma. She's just enamored with Emma. And he just knows because at one point it says this: Mr. Knightley, in fact, was one of the few people who could see faults in Emma Woodhouse. So no one else could see any faults in Emma. And I mean, in fact, her dad thought she was perfect, you know. So hopefully, you think, well, Harriet does need a friend, and you think it might be good, but at the same time, she gets a proposal of marriage from Mr. Martin, and Emma just puts the kibosh on that in a very clever way where she confuses Harriet, basically, because Harriet wants to accept it.
Harriet's main quality is she's very sweet.
Mhm.
She's not clever. She misses a lot of cues and different things, but she's very sweet
Congenial.
and trusting
Yeah.
to a fault.
Well,
But
to
yes.
Emma anyway, she is so sweet. Yeah, she's very kind. And in fact, in one point, Mr. Knightley said, but they have a little bit of an argument, and Emma says that Harriet is Mr. Martin's superior. And he said, far from that,
Mhm.
and he thought, of course, he's friends with Mr. Martin. And who's to say that he didn't encourage that match? Who's to say?
Yeah.
He's invested in it anyway. Or maybe he just thinks it would be a better match, And so they have a little tiff about that. That's the roll call is Harriet, and then there's
Emma, of course, we talked about her, the main character.
Emma and Mr. Knightley. Mr. Woodhouse, we talked about Miss Taylor and her new husband.
Mr. Weston.
Yeah, Mr. and Miss Weston. And there is this mysterious son that Mr. Weston has that has been living with his aunt and uncle, the Churchills, and he's taken their name, and his name is Frank Churchill. And he keeps saying that He's going to visit, but he has not come. And he didn't even come to the wedding of Captain Weston and Miss Taylor. So
he sends letters that are well written, but that's about it for a while.
And then in the town there is the clergyman, Mr. Elton, who he plays a role. And
he's the preacher.
Yes. And
but he's a snob.
Well, Emma thinks that she's going to match Harriet with Mr. Elton. And at one point, Mr. Knightley tells her that's not a good idea. He said, I think he likes you instead of Harriet. And she says, that's preposterous and all this.
And Mr. Elton will be nice to your face, but he's not going to marry below his station. He understands how money works, and he's going to marry to his advantage.
And he told her.
So,
He told her that. And
he did. He nailed it.
Yeah. And then
so those are all the main characters, I think.
Well, I'm looking for the
Jane Fairfax.
And Mrs. Bates, is that her name?
Miss Bates.
Yeah, Miss Bates.
She's never been married.
And she talks a lot. And Jane takes care of her.
She's the aunt. Miss Bates takes care of her mom, Mrs. Bates, who's very old. Miss Bates is a spinster, but she's the aunt of Jane Fairfax.
Yeah.
So
who, for
Jane,
some reason, that Emma doesn't care for.
She's jealous of her.
Yeah,
because she is beautiful, and she is a very talented
musician.
Yeah.
And I think in Jane Austen, excuse me, Emma can play. She can play the piano and she can sing, but it's just like mediocre. And then Jane is like above that. But they could be good friends, though, I guess. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
But it's easier for her to be friends with Harriet because that sets the bar really low. Would you rather be friends with someone that's going to challenge you or someone that's going to praise you all the time? What do you think?
Well, we see that she goes with Harriet, and she's not friends with Jane.
And then what about the author's craft?
So what does it mean?
Yeah.
What were some big themes that you pulled out?
Well, what would be the different classes and stuff? I don't know. Prejudices? I hate to borrow that from Pride and Prejudice, but
yeah, it's and it's hard for us to. I guess we still live in that to a certain point, but not as defined as this time period, the class system. Everybody knew which class that they were in, and knew that you don't cross over very rarely. And another book that kind of covers this well at a time period where this is changing is the series where she's a detective.
Maisie Dobbs?
We're seeing the end of this class system. We see the world's changing, because of the world wars really had pushed people out of their comfort zones was one proponent of that. And so that's a good book to read to see how those kind of change, because she was from a much lower class, and Maisie is elevated because of she's extremely smart. She gets personal tutors because of this one family that pays for it. And that's a whole different thing. But coming back here, you don't cross over. So what she's trying to do with Harriet is cross her over to a different level of status.
Mm-hmm. And matching her with Elton. But then, just like the real man who left Jane because he wanted someone that would further him, and they even say that today, marry up. You can marry up. I'm going to, so I feel like you're right. We may think that we've gotten out of that, but still, I think it's still around, still present,
And really, that's one of the themes that Jane Austen was brilliantly portraying, because it's kind of a sharp satire on those class distinctions. I don't think Jane Austen personally liked that. And she's trying to show kind of the absurdity in one sense of it, and how limiting it was, especially for women at this time period.
And I think you see a theme of friendship, of love and family. And I do think that you see that with growth that you will have maybe someone's going to confront you. I mean, that's the whole thing about Mr. Knightley. He's not afraid to say the hard thing. I feel like Mr. Knightley would be a great parent. He's not going to be a gentle parent. He is going to say, no, you cannot have that. No, you
Mm.
will work for that. He's going to be that kind of parent because he's that kind of friend to Emma. And oh, we forgot to mention his brother who married Emma's sister, Isabel.
John Knightley.
Yes, forgot about him. And I did not like him nearly as much as Mr. Knightley.
Although actually John Knightley was the one that told Emma that Mr. Elton likes her.
Was
He
it
was the
John?
one.
Yeah,
It was
well, I
John.
guess he's right.
And
Oh,
so
he was
he was the
right.
one, but Mr. Knightley said that Mr. Elton would never marry Harriet.
Okay.
But John was the one that said, I think he's interested in you. So, I mean, even though, and John is very logical,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
not very emotional.
And then now that you mention that, I'm going back. It's been a minute since I've read it, but I remember her sister Isabel is just like her father, very hypochondria in all the kids. But John is level-headed and everything. So yeah, I do remember that.
I
And
don't know if I marked it, but I love that part where they're going to. Oh, here it is. I did mark it. Okay, so I'm skipping ahead of the quotes, but so they were asked to go to, it's like a Christmas, to get
yeah,
out on Christmas Day to go to the Westons for like a get together. And John, this is what he's saying. A man, said he, must have a very good opinion of himself when he asks people to leave their own fireside and encounter such a day as this, for the sake of coming to see him. He must think himself a most agreeable fellow. I could not do such a thing. It is the greatest absurdity. Actually snowing at this moment. The folly of not allowing people to be comfortable at home, and the folly of people's not staying comfortably at home when they can.
yeah.
So
That shows you
he's
a
an
little bit.
introvert. John's an introvert. So
Yeah. And there is, like you said, her father does not like change, and he also does not like he has one way of thinking, and he's not very flexible in that as well. Because like Isabel and John had some sickness and they went to the beach, but they went to the wrong beach, according to Mr. Woodhouse. And Dr. Perry, who he quotes all the time, says to go here, but they didn't have the time or the money to go there. So but he sees things one way. He's a one-dimensional person. And yeah, he's like, whoa, he does not get the Father of the Year award at all. But yeah, I forgot about John. And I love that part in that movie you told me to watch. That line is quoted. They quote it right out of the book. And that's like hilarious.
So let's go on to why does it matter to me? So we kind of covered some themes and symbolism. We talked about kind of the setting, where it was at, the summary, but why does it matter?
Well, I think as it will grow you there are two reasons, I think. First of all, it's not written like we talk, and it will grow you as a reader to do something hard, you know. But then I think you'll fall in love with the language, just like you read that little piece, and then you'll go, oh yeah, I love it. So and then another thing is the dynamics of dealing with people. And you see how she's done that. Like take away the cell phones, take away the screens, and dealing with people face to face is kind of like a breath of fresh air. Really, it is beautiful to the banter and look. Listen to this one. This is something Emma said. There are people who, the more you do for them, the less they do for themselves. Is that not
Mm-hmm.
true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you will find little nuggets like that all throughout that. So, and I feel like part of what's wrong with society is that we have kind of dumbed everything down, and we're making mistakes that we ought not be making because we haven't read this. You know, I mean, that to me that's powerful. And I think we call that enabling people.
Mm.
I do everything for you. In fact, just yesterday I was at a funeral and a man was talking to me about his brother, and he said his brother was the firstborn and his parents did everything for him. Like everything. And then he looked me right in the eye and he said they didn't do him any favors. Because fast forward 50 years and his life is not good. So it is not good to do everything for them. But he looked, because he was not the firstborn, and he said they did not do him any favors. And I'm thinking, wow. So, you know, Emma was trying to do Harriet favors. She's trying to do things for her, but she really, in essence, did not do her any favors. So,
Well, it's funny too, or ironic, coming from Emma, who is in this high place of privilege. So everything has been done for her, essentially. She's not in want of anything. And therefore, she has no desire to marry because she's like, I have everything I need. I have servants, I have carriage, money. So she was in want. She was not in want of anything. So she was essentially given everything. But it is interesting that and she's extremely intelligent, but even at that level, she was still blinded by her faults. So I think she grew through the process, but I really, it had to come, she had to be able to humble herself. I think with privilege
mm,
comes pride. And so I think that is like kind of the main thing for me, that this person in this extremely high privileged position was able to learn from her mistakes and was able to have some humility. I think pride is something we all struggle with, but even more so if you're privileged and you come from that. So I like how Jane shows this growth in Emma.
uh-huh.
You see her make mistakes, but you see her learn from them.
And then it does have a surprise in it that you're kind of like blindsided and all that. And then it has some sweetness in it that I just one this doesn't spoil anything, but they if you watch the movie, they show the dances, which is so cool. I mean, how do they remember all that is amazing. But there sets Harriet, and no one will dance with Harriet. And it breaks your heart. And there Mr. Elton is, and he said, "Oh, I'm married. I don't dance, blah, blah, blah." Well, he had just asked Miss Weston to dance. So, kinda looked bad. No one and there goes Mr. Knightley over there and ask her to dance. And so, if you don't like Mr. Knightley by that time, then you will just fall in love with Mr. Knightley then because he does that, and Emma notices. She notices that because she was just sitting there. I just felt so sorry for her. But and I had another quote. So Mr. Knightley is a passionate man. He's very passionate. And he says, "There is one thing, Emma, which a man can always do if he chooses, and that is his duty, not by maneuvering and finessing, but by vigor and resolution." Well, and he's saying that about, I don't know if you, this has nothing to do with the plot, so we could talk about it. But at one point, Frank Churchill goes all the way back to London to get a haircut. And it's a big deal. Like he's going to miss something that he said he would be there, but he's going to get a haircut. And you're like,
But
what?
that's not the real reason he went.
But that's what he said. But I
That's what he
mean,
said. But
and
that was a cover up for the real reason.
you think, but then you have Mr. Knightley, this goes right with what Anne of Green Gables, at the end of Anne of Green Gables, she says, when you embrace doing your duty, because she's going to stay with, I forgot her name, the woman, Matthew and Marilla. She's going to stay with Marilla, who's going blind and all that at the end. But she said, once you embrace your duty, it is a wonderful thing, And he's saying you can do your duty, but not by maneuvering and finessing around it, but just to. And another time he also stood up to Miss Elton, who was trying to bully him, to push him around to say, "No, we can do this, we can do that." She wanted to take the bull by the horns. I'm talking about Mr. Knightley and comparing him to Anne of.
Marilla, and that the duty. You're talking about duty.
How many times do we have a bad attitude about doing our duty or doing something that's not exciting? Like let's say washing the dishes or preparing supper or whatnot. Isn't it your frame of mind that determines whether you think of that as a grudge or you're grateful. You're begrudging it or you're grateful. Isn't that true?
What's that book that we read with the monk? But basically, he talks about like what you're saying in washing the dishes and doing all these things, like finding the joy in those things.
We must read the book 1000 Gifts by Amy Voskamp, because that's what she's so good about, that just embracing your your duties, and many people real I think it comes down to gratitude.
It
If you're
does.
grateful,
Mhm.
and I think that Mr. Knightley he's grateful, and cuz he feels like, and he is privileged, but he wants to take care of his people. He wants to take care of those people under him.
Well, you're correct. And the interesting thing is he is privileged, but he walks everywhere. So he's not necessarily even using the privilege for himself because he has all these carriages. He could go anywhere, but he prefers to walk. And I think he's interesting because he does live in this class system and he knows how it works, just with Mr. Elton saying he's not going to marry below his class. But I don't think he necessarily agrees with it. And we see that many times, like how close he is with Martin, who's a tenant farmer on his place, and he gives him advice. He helps Martin, and then we see it like you mentioned earlier, asking Harriet to dance. And then we see it again with Miss Bates when he gets on to Emma. If he was completely with the classes, he wouldn't care because she's so below him. But that upset him because that wasn't the right thing to do. And so the right thing to do isn't confined to classes. And so we see him going back and forth through the different classes. And he keeps his status, he maintains that, but he does the right thing. That's why you like Mr. Knightley. He does the right thing.
And like you said, Emma shows growth. I have a quote here. Mr. K, I call him Mr. K. So he says, "You are materially changed since we talked on this subject before." And Emma says, "I hope so, for at that time I was a fool." And you talked about her humility, and that's
Hmm.
humility right there. I
Yeah.
hope so, because I was a fool. And this is a Shakespeare quote in there. Did you catch it? I think it was early on. It said, "The course of true love never did run smooth."
Oh, no, I didn't catch it.
Yeah, it was so good. I'm like, wow. And I think she's trying to show us too that, well, I'll even have humility in a quote. Emma says, "Nothing but to grow more worthy of him, whose intentions and judgment are ever had ever been so superior to her own. Nothing but the lessons of her past folly might teach her humility and circumspection in the future." She's thinking this, and I said, "How often have you heard the word circumspection? Have you heard that word much?"
Mm-mm.
But I like it. Isn't that think about your thinking?
And
It's
she does that.
mhm,
We see her ponder things, like especially with Frank Churchill. And we won't go into that, but at one point, Frank Churchill is a love interest and he says all the right things. They're instant friends almost. And so, but she thinks about her thinking with Frank. She's very intuitive, very introspective.
and, there like, when I knew you were gonna say, "What is one word?" Well, man, there I kept changing my one word summary, so that was so hard for me to come up with one, but this was my word that I landed on after I've marked out several, but perspective.
Ooh, that's good.
It is about perspective. What about you?
Well, I had two, humility or growth. What do you think? Which one?
Well, they go together. You've given me 2 before. Let's let you have 2. I
Okay.
think those are both really good. I love both of those. So, in fact, I'm writing those down. I love humility and growth. I mean, doesn't that really go together? Because unless you have humility, there's not gonna be any growth.
You're right. So maybe humility, because you have to start with that. And at first, but she's young. And again, she's very privileged. And so I'm really amazed that she has any humility. I think that just shows what good of an influence Mr. Knightley has been on her and Miss Weston.
Mhm.
They
Yes.
both, because her father hasn't really been much of a help, but I think
But help.
she, but she But maybe he has been a help because he is so needy, she thinks about him.
That's true.
She might think about him more than she thinks about herself because he's so needy.
And she knows that. She knows he's needy.
Yeah. But
What does
she cares for him and she knows that she's probably going to care for him her whole life and she's okay with that. So, I mean, that's not selfish.
No, but I mean, it is if you're the dad, though.
Yeah.
Bad dad, Mr. Woodhouse. I'm just like, and I don't know if this has any reflection on Jane Austen's real father or what that was like. I'm so happy to have read it though, because like I've read Pride and Prejudice and it's nothing like Pride and Prejudice.
Mm-mm.
So I'm excited to have read that, and I appreciate you putting it out there because I think definitely Pride and Prejudice gets the most hype. The one that got her the most money was Mansfield Park before she, you know, I don't think she earned a lot of money, but what earned her the most money was Mansfield Park, which I don't know anything about that one at all.
Well, we'll have to have that on our list. Sense and Sensibility, that's on my list
I did get a
at
copy of
some
that.
point. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanna read that. How do you connect it to what are the similarities of this Emma and Emma M. Lyon?
Well, the constitutional, they both
Mhm.
go for constitutionals would be one way. And of course, they both do not have mothers and they both have different gentlemen. There's different ones.
I think
So,
they're both very clever.
yes.
Very
Hmm.
but it's interesting because 'cause they're at totally different classes.
Definitely. She's more, yeah, Emma M. Lyon is down there with Harriet, you know, maybe below Harriet because she has an aunt that scathingly
Well,
gets
no,
on.
she's above Harriet because she wasn't a natural birth.
Oh, that's right. But I mean, it is, I would say Emma M. Lyon is funnier. She's funnier than Emma, you know. And I do think that her dad was had a great impact on her, you know. I know they don't have a relationship anymore because he passed away, but they had a bond, a very strong bond. And I think that's important. Of course, you're right. Emma has a bond with her dad, but it's a needy bond. It's
Yeah,
not the same. It's
yeah.
not where you like push a bird out of the nest to see if it'll fly. It's not that kind of bond. This
But
is
I feel like
a famous quote is, "If I loved you less, I might be able to talk about it more." And I love that because I'm not going to say who said it, but Jane wrote it. So I love it though, because some people we need to realize, and you do that when you read these books with a lot of characters, that some people do not have the gift to talk about their feelings. They just don't. And I think we need to be okay with that. If someone like washes your car for you or something, that's obviously like what is his name? The one that did the 5 love language.
Gary Chapman.
Yeah, that's an act of service, you know. Um you've got to be able to realize that. And they're speaking to you and it might be to you, it might be totally a different language, you know. Just like if you were speaking to me in Hebrew, I wouldn't understand it. But
Or Chinese. I know how to if I said to you in Chinese, "What I need,"
yeah,
do you
that's
know
yeah, I
what
have
I need? It means I love you.
see,
Yeah.
and I didn't know. And in Japanese, itchy knee is 1, 2, but it sounds like your knee is itching. Itchy
Mhm.
knee, but itchy knee sanshi. Go. Rakunanu. So a few of those is just 1, 2, 3, 4. So, if someone acts of service, what is the one like quality time? I think that's one those people are suffering probably more than anybody right now. Because if you're talking to me, but you're holding your cell phone up here, then that's a division. And if I can't see your eyes and we're not communicating, then I'm not getting quality time. It's time, but it would be like me pulling up and putting the wrong gas in my car. It's not going to work. There's different kinds of what if you put diesel in a gasoline engine? Well, nobody would do that.
People have, but it ends badly.
Yeah, but that's kind of what you're doing. If you have someone who needs quality time and you're saying, "Well, mine is acts of service, so I'm going to wash your car, I'm going to do acts of service." Okay, but you've got to speak to them where they are, And I think Mr. Knightley he was pro at that. You're right. He went and visited with Mr. Woodhouse and he went there. Would I go visit Mr. Woodhouse? No, of course I feel like, you know, I'm not the man that Mr. That Mr. Knightley was, but I think I liked him even better than Mr. Darcy, for sure.
Agreed, agreed. Because Mr. Darcy, and I wonder if they're at the level of privilege. I didn't look that up, but I would is their level of privilege the same?
Yeah, I don't know,
I don't know.
but
That's
I
a good
wonder.
question.
I mean, who did you like the best?
Oh, definitely definitely Mr. Knightley, for sure. So, I feel like Mr. Knightley he is a man of character. And I think Mr. Darcy is definitely a man of privilege and class, and the snobbery's there. Like, I don't think Mr. Darcy would have danced with Harriet. I don't think he would have.
Yeah, no.
So, Mr. Knightley, again, does the right thing even when it crosses the class.
Even when other people think it's questionable, like, he is not caring what people think. He's going to do the right thing, which you mentioned that earlier, and that's character. That's
It is character.
integrity, you know?
Mr. Darcy also would not have put up with Miss Bates because he was annoyed with
Well, that's
kind
true.
of silly people. So
Mhm.
he would not have
Have been
been
kind.
any or been around her. He would not. And Mr. Knightley visits her and and gives them food, donates his apples, makes
Mm.
sure they're taken care of. So, yeah, Mr. Knightley all the way.
He's a rock star. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a rock star, and I know he's not a father, but it's June, so I'm gonna say if he was a father, he would be a super dad.
Well, that is a wrap on Emma by Jane Austen.
And we are just thrilled that you. Yes, I cannot tell you if I know it's hard to just dive into these old classics. I realize it's kind of like, because I was there too, and so I've been there, but you won't regret it if you every time. Like there was this big book that Kate and I read. It's been a while. It's been a minute, but I've heard it referred to so many times, and it was East of Eden. I mean,
Mm,
I had never read Steinbeck, but and it was another scary book to me. It was just really scary that it's so thick. But if everybody would read the classics, I mean, we don't need to make all the mistakes. We can learn. I mean, the Bible's great to tell you what not to do too, and you can connect them. But East of Eden, whoa, man. And here you can see the kindness of people, and you can also see those who are operating on selfishness. And
mhm.
anyway, it will grow you. So thanks for stopping by. Let's connect.
To reflect.
We'll catch you on the next one.